The town of Willow Creek, North Carolina, was nestled between rolling green hills where the crisp autumn air carried the scent of pine and damp earth. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other's names, where life moved a little slower. But for ours Clara Jenkins, a 9-year-old girl, the world hadn't felt slow in a long time. Ever since her father, Edward Jenkins, had passed away in a tragic car accident over a year ago, time had felt like a blur of sadness and unanswered questions. That Saturday morning, Clara clutched a battered tin box close to her chest as she followed the worn dirt path toward the town's auction barn. Inside the tin were all her savings, birthday money, Christmas gifts, and every single dollar she'd managed to earn from chores. It wasn't much, but she wasn't here for just any auction. She was here for something specific, something important. Martha Jenkins, Clara's mother, walked beside her, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "Clara, I don't understand why you insisted on coming here. We don't need a dog." Clara didn't answer. She had learned long ago that trying to explain things to adults never really worked the way she wanted. Instead, she just held on to the tin box a little tighter and kept walking. Inside the barn, the air was thick with the scent of hay and sawdust mixed with the faint aroma of livestock. Rows of metal pens lined the walls, filled with animals waiting to be sold: goats, horses, a few pigs, and of course dogs. Some of the dogs were excited, barking at passersby, tails wagging. Others curled up in the corners of their enclosures, resigned to their fate. Then Clara saw him. A German shepherd lay motionless in the farthest pen, his ribs showing through his dull coat. He didn't wag his tail or perk his ears up like the others. His amber eyes held no excitement, only a wary acceptance of whatever was coming next. Clara's heart clenched. That one's been returned twice. A deep voice interrupted her thoughts. The auctioneer, a middle-aged man with a weathered face and a voice like gravel, stood beside her. Name's Phantom. Was supposed to be a service dog but didn't make the cut. Turns out he's got health issues, seizures. No one wants a broken dog, kid. "I do," Clara said without hesitation. Martha stiffened beside her. "Clara!" The auctioneer scratched his chin. "Kid, I admire your spirit, but this ain't a pet adoption fair. That dog needs medical care, probably training. He's more trouble than he's worth." Clara ignored him. She turned to face the auction block as the bidding started. Other dogs were sold off quickly, their prices climbing past anything she could afford. Then Phantom's turn came. "We'll start at $100, the auctioneer announced. Silence filled the barn, no one moved. $75, he tried again. Still nothing. Clara het matchklaya SUV bike C2 $50 kibe, inye, GQ keen, belifan anunch. A few murmurs rippled through the crowd, some chuckled. The auctioneer looked hesitant. "That all you got, kid?" Clara nodded and lifted the tin box, the coins inside rattling. The man sighed, going one side, going twice. He paused, almost as if waiting for someone to outbid her, but no one did. He let out a sharp breath and smacked the gavel down. "Sold to the little lady in the front." Clara exhaled, her heart pounding. She did it. Phantom was hers. Martha's hand clamped onto her shoulder. "Clara, what were you thinking?" "I was thinking that he needs me," Clara whispered, stepping closer to the pen. Phantom didn't move at first, but as she knelt down and reached out a small hand, his ears twitched slightly. It wasn't much, but it was something. Martha rubbed her temples. "We can't afford a sick dog, Clara. We don't have the money for vet bills." "4. I'll take care of him," Clara interrupted. "I'll use Dad's old training notes. I'll make him better." Her mother's expression softened just slightly at the mention of Edward. Even now, his absence left an emptiness in their home, an unspoken grief that neither of them fully addressed. He had been a service dog trainer, one of the best, and Clara had spent countless hours watching him work. If anyone could help Phantom, it was her. Martha let out a slow sigh. "We'll talk about this later." Clara beamed and turned back to Phantom. "Come on, boy, let's go home." As they led Phantom out of the barn, Clara felt a sense of triumph. But as she looked around, a chill ran down her spine. In the crowd, a man stood watching them. He was tall, dressed in a dark coat, and his expression was unreadable. But his eyes were locked onto Phantom. And when Clara met his gaze, a slow, knowing smile crossed his lips. She swallowed hard, gripping Phantom's leash tighter. Something told her that this wasn't just about saving a dog. This was just the beginning. That night, as the house settled into silence, Clara pulled her blankets tighter around her. Phantom lay beside her, his slow breathing the only sound in the darkness. Then, outside her window, headlights flashed briefly before disappearing into the night. A black car sat parked at the end of their street, watching. The morning after the strange black car was spotted near their home, Clara couldn't shake the uneasy feeling in her gut. Something was wrong. Ever since she had brought Phantom home from the auction, the world around her seemed to have shifted, as if an invisible force was slowly closing in on them. Phantom, however, was different. The once weak and frightened German shepherd had started responding to Clara in ways that surprised even her. At first, it was subtle, his alertness, the way he watched her every move as if anticipating her next command. And then something happened that made Clara certain Phantom was not an ordinary dog. That morning, Clara decided to test Phantom with some basic commands from her father's old training manual. She had found the notebook the night before, buried under some of her father's old belongings in the attic. It smelled like dust and faintly of the leather jacket he used to wear, and flipping through the pages made Clara feel close to him again. She knelt down beside Phantom in the backyard. "Sit," she commanded. Phantom obeyed instantly, his posture perfect, his eyes locked onto hers. "Stay." Again, flawless execution. Clara bit her lip, flipping through the pages of the notebook. These were easy commands, ones any trained dog might know. But what about the more advanced ones? She took a deep breath and tried something she had never heard anyone use outside of her father's private training sessions: brace. Phantom's ears twitched. He hesitated for half a second, then shifted his weight, planting himself firmly as if preparing to support a person's weight. Clara's heart pounded. How did he know that command? That was a service dog term, something meant to help people with balance issues, or... She flipped to another page and read aloud alert. Phantom's ears perked. He stepped forward, sniffing the air as if trying to sense something. His tail stiffened. Then, as if sensing something Clara couldn't, he let out a short, sharp bark and nudged her leg. Clara gasped. He had responded not just as a well-trained pet, but as something else, something more. He had been trained for a purpose that someone clearly didn't want her to uncover. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. Phantom lay beside her bed, his breathing steady, but her thoughts raced. The notebook confirmed what she suspected. Phantom wasn't just a failed service dog. He had been part of a highly specialized training program, one her father had been involved with before his death. But why had he been abandoned? And why were people now looking for him? A crash from downstairs jolted Clara upright. Phantom's head shot up, ears on high alert. Then he growled, a deep, menacing sound Clara had never heard from him before. Clara's breath hitched. Someone was in the house. She reached for her phone, but before she could dial, the door to her room creaked open. Clara. It was her mother, Martha, standing in the doorway, her face pale and her voice a whisper. "Stay here," Clara whispered back. "Phantom's growling." Martha's gaze dropped to the dog, whose entire body was rigid with tension. He was staring past them toward the staircase. A shadow moved downstairs. Someone was inside. Martha grabbed Clara's hand and backed away toward the bedroom, but before she could shut the door, Phantom lunged forward. His barking was explosive, echoing through the house as he charged toward the intruder. A loud thud, a curse, then hurried footsteps and the front door slamming shut. Clara and Martha rushed to the top of the stairs, but the house was empty except for the shattered glass near the front door. Someone had broken in, and they hadn't been looking for money or valuables. They had been looking for Phantom. The next morning, as the police finished their inspection, Clara sat on the front porch, hugging Phantom close. His body was warm and solid against her, grounding her in a way that nothing else could. Mrs. Eleanor Stone, their elderly neighbor, arrived with a worried expression. "Are you two all right?" she asked Martha, eyeing the broken window. Martha sighed. "We're fine, just shaken up. The police think it was an attempted burglary." "What is that?" Stone glanced at Clara and Phantom, then lowered her voice. "That wasn't just a random burglary, dear. It was about the dog." Clara stiffened. "What do you mean?" The old woman hesitated, then nodded to herself as if making a decision. "Come inside, child. There's something you need to know." Inside Mrs. Stone's small, cozy kitchen, Clara listened intently as the old woman spoke. "Many years ago, a group of men came to town looking for a specific type of dog," she began. "They weren't just looking for any dog. They needed one that could detect medical conditions before they happened. They said it was for military use, but I always suspected there was more to it." Martha frowned. "Medical detection." Mrs. Stone nodded. "Your father was one of the best trainers in the field, Clara. He worked with those men, but he didn't trust them. He stopped working with them right before his accident." Clara felt a chill run down her spine. "Are you saying they might have been involved in his accident?" Mrs. Stone hesitated, then shook her head. "I don't know, dear. But I do know this: if Phantom was one of those dogs, they won't stop looking for him." The Clara swallowed hard, gripping Phantom's fur. "Then we have to find out why." That evening, as Clara and her mother returned home, they felt a weight hanging over them. The house felt different now, no longer just a home, but a place that had been violated. Martha locked the door behind them and sighed. "We should stay with someone else for a few nights," she said. "At least until we figure this out." Clara nodded, but deep down she knew running wouldn't solve anything. If someone wanted Phantom that badly, they wouldn't stop until they got him, and Clara wasn't about to let that happen. She glanced down at the dog by her side. Phantom wasn't just any dog, he was special. And if the people after him thought they could scare her into giving him up, they were about to learn just how wrong they were. The wind howled through the trees as Clara sat in the dimly lit kitchen, her fingers curled tightly around the edge of the wooden table. The words scrawled across the living room wall still burned in her mind. Ritor nitor facie conets. The weight of those words pressed heavily on her chest. Whoever these people were, they wanted Phantom, and they weren't going to stop until they got him. Martha paced back and forth, her expression a mix of worry and anger. "This has gone too far," she muttered. "We need to go to the police." Lucas, who had been leaning against the counter with his arms crossed, nodded. "She's right. We don't have enough proof yet. And if these people are connected to something bigger, they might have ways of making sure the authorities stay out of it." Martha exhaled sharply and ran a hand through her hair. "So what do we do?" Lucas looked at Clara. "We find out exactly who we're up against. But first, we get out of here. They know where you live, which means staying here isn't safe." Martha hesitated before nodding. "I have a friend, Laura. She has a cabin in the woods about 20 miles from here. It's off the grid. We could go there." Lucas grabbed his jacket. "Good, pack light. We leave now." The drive was tense and silent. Phantom sat in the back seat beside Clara, his ears perked and his body stiff, as if sensing the danger that loomed over them. The headlights cut through the darkness as they wound their way into the mountains. When they finally arrived at the cabin, it was just as Lucas had hoped: isolated, hidden by thick pines and far from prying eyes. They unloaded quickly, securing the doors and windows before settling in. Clara sat on the old couch with Phantom curled at her feet. "We need to know why they want him so badly," she said. "There has to be something in his medical records." Martha pulled out the folder Dr. Thorne had given them before they fled. She flipped through the pages. pausing at a section highlighted in red ink. "This is it," she murmured. "Phantom was injected with an experimental drug during his training." Lucas leaned in. "What kind of drug, A neurological enhancement serum designed to increase K9 sensory perception. Initial tests showed promising results, but prolonged exposure led to unpredictable side effects." Clara's breath hitched. "That's why he can sense seizures before they happen, isn't it?" "The drug made him more aware." Martha nodded. "Yes, but there's more." She turned the page. "The serum didn't work on most dogs. Out of the 50 they tested, Phantom was the only successful subject." Lucas cursed under his breath. "That explains why they want him back so badly. He's their only success." Clara swallowed hard. "So what do we do now?" Before anyone could answer, the sound of crunching gravel outside made them all freeze. Lucas moved quickly, peeking through the blinds. A black SUV was parked just beyond the tree line, its headlights off. "They found us!" Martha's face paled. "How?" Lucas grabbed his gun. "Doesn't matter. We need to go now." Clara grabbed Phantom's leash, her heart pounding. "We can't let them take him." Martha nodded. "Back door now." They slipped out the rear exit just as footsteps crunched on the porch. They ran through the woods, their breath visible in the cold night air. Clara held tight to Phantom's leash, urging him to keep up. Behind them, voices barked orders, followed by the unmistakable sound of a gun being cocked. Lucas stopped, pressing them against a tree. "They're armed." Clara's heart hammered in her chest. "What do we do?" Lucas pulled out his phone and typed quickly. "I just sent our location to someone I trust. We just need to hold out until they get here." A flashlight beam cut through the darkness, sweeping dangerously close to them. A voice called out, "We know you're here!" "Hand over the dog and no one gets hurt." Phantom let out a low growl. Clara whispered, "We're not giving him up." Lucas nodded. "Then we fight." The night air was thick with tension as they braced for the inevitable confrontation, knowing that this was only the beginning of the battle for Phantom's freedom. Clara's heart pounded as she gripped the map Lucas had spread across the dashboard of his truck. The facility where Biogentech had taken Phantom was hidden deep in the outskirts of Asheville, tucked away behind dense forest and private roads that weren't marked on any public maps. According to the information Lucas had uncovered through his military contacts, this wasn't just a lab. It was a full-fledged research compound, well-guarded and nearly impenetrable. Martha, sitting beside her daughter, ran a worried hand through her hair. "This is insane," she muttered. "We can't just walk in there and demand they hand over Phantom." "We're not walking in," Lucas corrected, his voice firm. "We're sneaking in." Clara clenched her fists. "I don't care what it takes. I'm getting him back." Lucas exhaled sharply, studying the fierce determination in Clara's eyes. "All right, kid," he said. "Then here's the plan." Under the cover of darkness, Lucas led the way through the thick trees bordering Biogentech's compound. He moved with practiced ease, his time in the military evident in every calculated step. Clara, despite her nerves, followed closely, mirroring his movements as best she could. Martha, though terrified, stayed right behind them, her protective instincts outweighing her fear. The compound was surrounded by a tall electrified fence, but Lucas had anticipated that. Using a set of wire cutters, he quickly created a small opening near the ground, just big enough for Clara to squeeze through. Martha hesitated for a split second before crawling through after her daughter. Beyond the fence, the facility loomed like a ghostly monolith, its sterile white walls reflecting the moonlight. Lucas led them toward a side entrance, a maintenance door he'd identified as the least secure point. With a deft hand, he picked the lock and ushered them inside. Inside, the facility was eerily quiet. Fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead, casting a cold glow over the pristine white hallways. Clara's hands trembled as she clutched the small flashlight Lucas had given her, trying to steady her breathing. "We'll find Phantom and we get out fast," Lucas whispered. Navigating the building felt like walking through a labyrinth. Every door they passed bore scientific labels, neurological testing, experimental trials, genetic modification. The deeper they went, the more sinister it became. Finally, they reached a corridor marked Canine Research Wing. Clara's pulse quickened. "This is it," she whispered. Lucas tried the first door. Locked. He moved to the next one, also locked. Panic started to set in. Then a faint whimper echoed down the hall. Clara's head snapped up. "Phantom," she breathed. They followed the sound until they reached a heavy metal door with a small window. Inside, Phantom lay motionless in a crate, hooked up to wires and monitors. His breathing was shallow, his body limp. "No," Clara choked out, her fingers scrambling at the keypad lock on the door. "We have to get him out." Martha grabbed her daughter's shoulders. "Clara, wait. We need to do this right." Lucas pulled out a small device and attached it to the keypad. "Give me a minute." Clara pressed her hand against the glass, willing Phantom to move, to acknowledge her. But he remained still. The lock clicked open. Clara burst through the door, rushing to Phantom's side. She reached into the crate, gently cupping his face. "Phantom, it's me. I'm here." The German shepherd's eyes fluttered open, and for the briefest moment, recognition flickered in them. Then an alarm blared through the facility. "Damn it!" Lucas cursed. "They know we're here! We have to move now." Martha helped Clara unhook the wires from Phantom as Lucas scanned the room for an alternate escape route. Heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway. Guards were coming. Phantom, though weak, let out a low growl as Clara gently lifted him from the crate. He was lighter than before, his once strong body now frail, but there was still fight left in him. Clara wrapped her arms around him, holding him tightly as Lucas shoved open a second door leading into another corridor. "This way," he hissed. They sprinted through the facility, alarms wailing around them. Clara struggled under Phantom's weight, but she refused to let go. Martha took one of his front legs, helping her carry him as they ran. Bursting out onto the loading dock, they found themselves face to face with a squad of Biogentech security officers, guns raised. "Put the dog down," a man in a suit ordered, stepping forward. His sharp features and steely eyes sent a chill down Clara's spine. "You don't understand what you're interfering with." Lucas stepped protectively in front of Clara and Martha. "We understand perfectly," he growled. "You experimented on this dog. You used him. That ends now." The man smirked. "That dog is the key to medical advancements that could change the world. You really think a 9-year-old girl and an ex-soldier are going to stop that?" Before Lucas could respond, headlights suddenly flooded the dock. A caravan of police cars screeched to a stop, sirens wailing. Officers poured out, weapons drawn. Leading them was Dr. Thorne, alongside a well-known investigative journalist who had been gathering evidence against Biogentech for months. "You're done," Dr. Thorne declared. "This entire operation is illegal! You won't get away with this!" The man in the suit stiffened, glancing at his men. Realizing they were outnumbered, he slowly raised his hands. One by one, the guards followed suit. As the officers moved in to make arrests, Clara collapsed to her knees, still holding Phantom. The weight of everything crashed over her at once, and for the first time since this nightmare had begun, she allowed herself to cry. The fallout from the Biogentech scandal was swift and brutal. The facility was shut down, its executives arrested, and its unethical experiments exposed to the world. Phantom, along with several other dogs, was placed under the care of trusted veterinarians, finally free from their captors. In the weeks that followed, Phantom slowly regained his strength. Though he would never fully recover from what had been done to him, he found solace in Clara's unwavering love. Martha, seeing the profound impact Phantom had on her daughter, made a decision. Together, they transformed their barn into a small training center dedicated to rehabilitating rescued service dogs and pairing them with children in need. One afternoon, as Clara played with Phantom in the fields, a package arrived in the mail. Inside was an old photograph of her father standing beside a dog identical to Phantom. A single note was attached. Some stories never truly end. Clara smiled, holding the picture close. Phantom wasn't just any dog, he was part of something bigger, something her father had started long ago. And now, she would continue it. Together, they had found their purpose.